the portrait he almost lost. Chapter 1. When I was 6 years old, my mother found me sitting on the kitchen floor with a box of broken crayons and a piece of cardboard from a cereal box. I had drawn our apartment window. At least, that was what I told her. The picture did not look much like a window. The lines leaned in different directions, the frame was too wide, and the yellow circle outside could have been the sun or a badly shaped lemon. But my mother did not laugh. She crouched beside me in her blue nurse's uniform and asked, "Why is the light purple?" "Because yellow light is happy," I said. "Purple light is tired." She stared at the picture for a long moment. Then she kissed the top of my head and said, "Grace, I think you see things other people miss." That became the first sentence I ever believed about myself. My mother, Diane Bennett, raised me alone in a narrow apartment in Dorchester. She worked 12-hour shifts at a Boston hospital and sometimes came home with deep marks across her face from a mask. Her feet hurt. Her back hurt. Money was always tight. Still, she found ways to make our life beautiful. She put wildflowers in old pasta jars. She played Motown records while we cleaned on Sundays. She saved the colored tissue paper from birthday gifts because she knew I would use it in collages. My father left before I was born. For years, my mother said he had been young and frightened. She never called him cruel. She never said he had abandoned us. I learned the sharper version from one of her friends when I was 16. He had seen the positive pregnancy test, packed a bag, and disappeared before the week ended. By then, the truth did not change much. I had already learned that love was not measured by what people felt in a dramatic moment. Love was measured by who stayed after the moment was over. I painted constantly. I painted on paper, cardboard, old cabinet doors, and the backs of grocery bags. I painted my mother's hands after a night shift. I painted the laundromat at 3 in the afternoon, when sunlight turned the machines silver. I painted the empty chair across from us at dinner, though I never told my mother what it meant. At 18, I received a full scholarship to a respected art school in Boston. I cried when the letter came. My mother cried harder. She framed it before I had even accepted. College was the first place where being obsessed with color did not make me strange. I learned technique, composition, art history, and all the rules artists were expected to understand before they broke them. I also learned that talent did not protect anyone from hunger. I worked evenings at a cafe. I cleaned brushes in the printmaking studio. I helped install student shows and carried canvases larger than I was through stairwells that should have been condemned. During my final year, Margaret Hale, the director of the Hale Contemporary Gallery, saw one of my paintings at a student exhibition. It was a portrait of my mother asleep at our kitchen table after a double shift. Her face was turned away. One hand rested beside a cold cup of coffee. Morning light touched the edge of her uniform. The painting was called The One Who Stayed. Margaret bought it. More importantly, she offered to represent me. For the next 3 years, my career grew slowly. I sold enough work to rent a small studio in the South End. I taught weekend classes and took illustration jobs when sales were weak. My name appeared in a few local reviews. Nothing about my life was glamorous, but it belonged to me. Then, at 28, I met Alexander Sterling. The Hale Gallery had organized a benefit exhibition for a children's hospital. I had donated a painting called Blue Room, a large canvas filled with layers of navy, gray, and one thin line of gold. Halfway through the evening, I noticed a man standing in front of it. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a black tuxedo that made everyone else look slightly unfinished. His hair was dark brown, and his eyes were a warm shade of amber. He had the stillness of someone accustomed to rooms changing when he entered them. He studied the painting for several minutes. Then he looked at me. "Do you know the artist?" he asked. "A little." "Then maybe you can tell me why the room feels empty when there is clearly light coming through the door." I glanced at the canvas. "Because light does not always mean someone is coming in," I said. Sometimes it means someone just left. His attention sharpened. That sounds personal. Most honest art is personal. And dishonest art usually has a long explanation beside it. He laughed. It was not a polite laugh. He tipped his head back, genuinely amused, while two nearby donors turned to look at us. "You are the artist," he said. "Grace Bennett." He held out his hand. "Alexander Sterling." I knew the name immediately. Sterling Global owned luxury hotels, office towers, technology firms, and more commercial property than most people could imagine. Alexander was the founder's oldest grandson, the current CEO, and the man business magazines called the natural heir to the entire empire. I looked at his hand, then at him. "That explains the tuxedo." "What did you think it explained?" "The confidence." "You do not sound impressed." "I am impressed that you looked at the painting for more than 30 seconds. Most people only stop because the label says it is expensive." He smiled. "How expensive is it?" "You cannot afford it." He laughed again. The next morning, Margaret called me into her office. Blue Room had sold for 3 times my previous record. The buyer was Alexander Sterling. A bouquet arrived an hour later. No roses, no dramatic declaration, just white tulips and a card. "Dinner, 1 hour. You can leave early if I become unbearable." I should have said no. Men like Alexander Sterling belonged to a world that had never made room for women like me. He had inherited a name printed on buildings. I still checked the price of milk before putting it in my cart. But I remembered the way he had looked at my painting. Not as decoration. As if he wanted to understand it. I agreed to dinner. That decision gave me the happiest years of my life. It also led me to the worst night I had ever survived. Chapter 2. Alexander asked me to call him Alex before our appetizers arrived. He chose a quiet Italian restaurant instead of one of the places where people photographed their food and watched the door for celebrities. He asked about my mother, my work, and the first painting I remembered loving. He did not talk about himself until I asked. His grandfather had started Sterling Global with one small hotel outside Providence. Alex's father expanded it into real estate, technology, and investment. By the time Alex became CEO at 31, the company employed more than 12,000 people. "That sounds exhausting," I said. "Most people say impressive. Most people want something from you." He looked at me for a long moment. "What do you want?" "Tiramisu." He laughed, and something between us relaxed. We dated for 2 years. Alex entered my world carefully. He came to small gallery openings and stood in crowded studios without complaining about the heat. He learned not to ask whether a painting would match a sofa. He brought coffee when I worked late and never touched a wet canvas after I told him not to. I entered his world less gracefully. I attended charity dinners where people discussed islands as if everyone owned one. I learned the names of board members, investors, and relatives who smiled while calculating one another's weaknesses. I learned that Alex's mother could insult someone with a compliment so elegant it took 10 minutes to recognize. Alex never seemed embarrassed by me. At our first formal dinner with his family, I used the wrong fork and spilled water on the tablecloth. His uncle made a joke about artists living in chaos. Alex set down his own fork. "Grace built her career without a trust fund, Uncle Martin," he said. "I think she can survive the salad course." No one laughed at me again. He proposed in my studio on a rainy November evening. I had been working on a new series and was irritated because the color in one piece refused to become what I wanted. Alex arrived carrying takeout containers and asked me to show him the problem. I turned toward the canvas. When I looked back, he was on one knee. The ring was simple by Sterling standards, an oval diamond in a narrow gold band. "I know people think I can buy anything," he said, "but you are the first person who ever made me want to deserve something. Marry me, Grace." I said yes before he finished the sentence. My best friend, Brooke Lawson, was my maid of honor. Brooke and I had met when we were 12. Her family moved into our building after her father's business failed. She arrived wearing expensive sneakers and pretending she did not care that her life had changed overnight. I invited her to sit with me at lunch. After that, we were almost never apart. She was there when I received my scholarship. She helped my mother recover after gallbladder surgery. She stayed up with me the night before my first gallery show and painted the edges of 20 canvases because I was too nervous to hold a brush steadily. When Alex and I began dating, Brooke distrusted him. Men born into that much money do not understand consequences, she said. You have met him twice. That was enough to see he is used to getting what he wants. Over time, she changed her opinion. Alex helped her find investors when she launched a small public relations firm. He introduced her to clients, but never gave her money. Directly because he knew she would hate feeling rescued. By our wedding, Brooke called him the best thing that had ever happened to me. She stood beside me in pale green silk, holding my bouquet while Alex promised to be faithful, honest, and present. I believed every word. For almost 6 years, our marriage felt solid. We lived in a renovated brownstone on Beacon Hill, but I kept my studio in the South End. Alex never asked me to stop working. When one of my paintings sold for more than I had earned in my first 2 years combined, he opened champagne and bragged about me to everyone who would listen. We made Sunday breakfast together. We visited my mother twice a month. We took 1 week every summer when Alex turned off his work phone, and I promised not to bring sketchbooks to dinner. Blue Room hung in our living room. I thought of it as the beginning of us. 3 years into our marriage, Brooke's firm won a contract with Sterling Global. She became responsible for executive branding and crisis communications. At first, I was proud. She had worked hard. Alex respected her judgment. Their professional success seemed like proof that the people I loved could belong in the same life. Then small things began to change. Alex took his phone into the shower. He answered late messages, with the screen angled away from me. Brooke started knowing details about his schedule before I did. Once, at dinner, she mentioned a conference in Chicago. I looked at Alex. You are going to Chicago? He paused for half a second. I found out this afternoon. I was going to tell you tonight. Brooke smiled too quickly. Sorry, occupational hazard. I live inside his calendar now. We all laughed. I noticed the tension and chose not to name it. Another evening, I arrived late to a restaurant and found them sitting close together, laughing over something on his phone. The moment they saw me, Brooke moved her chair back. What did I miss? I asked. A terrible campaign idea, Alex said. He reached for my hand. His palm was warm, familiar, safe. I let myself believe him. Suspicion felt like an insult to 2 people I trusted. So I ignored the extra dinners, the private jokes, and the gifts Alex began bringing home after late nights. A bracelet after he missed my mother's birthday dinner. Flowers after a weekend conference ran longer than expected. A surprise trip to Maine after 2 weeks in which he barely looked up from his phone. Every explanation made sense by itself. Together, they formed a picture I refused to see. I had always believed an artist's greatest responsibility was honesty. But love had turned me into a talented liar. Mostly, I lied to myself. Chapter 3. The day my marriage broke began with a canvas I could not finish. I had been working on it for almost a month. It showed a woman standing at the edge of dark water, holding a red coat in one hand. I knew the painting needed something in the sky, but every color felt wrong. Margaret had arranged for me to visit a private collection in Cambridge that afternoon. The collector owned several paintings by an artist I admired, and I hoped seeing them in person would help me understand what my own work was missing. I took dozens of reference photographs. At one point, I set my phone on a low table beside a bronze sculpture, so I could take notes in my sketchbook. 2 hours later, I drove home without it. Alex's car was already outside. That was unusual. He rarely returned before 7. The moment I entered the brownstone, I heard voices from the library. Alex and his younger brother, Ryan, were arguing. The door was partly closed. "You keep calling it a mistake," Ryan said. "A mistake is one night. This has been going on for months." I stopped in the hallway. My first thought was business. Sterling Global had recently faced a serious problem involving an overseas hotel project. Alex had been tense for weeks, and Ryan, who served as chief operating officer, disagreed with him about how to handle it. "Lower your voice," Alex said. "Why? Grace is not home. That is the reason you chose today, isn't it?" Hearing my name made the air leave my lungs. Alex spoke so quietly that I almost missed the words. "I know what she deserves." "No, you know what you want to keep. Those are not the same thing." A floorboard creaked beneath my shoe. The voices stopped. I forced myself to walk into the library. "Hi," I said. "I did not know we were having a family meeting." Ryan turned toward me. His face looked wrong, pale, guilty. I was leaving. Alex stood behind his desk. His expression was controlled, but the muscle in his jaw was tight. "Is something wrong?" I asked. "Company issue," he said. "Nothing you need to worry about." Ryan looked at his brother with open disgust. Then he looked at me. For 1 second, I thought he might tell me whatever they had been discussing. Instead, he said, "Good night, Grace." He left without hugging me. Alex came around the desk and kissed my forehead. "How was Cambridge?" "Beautiful, intimidating, useful." I reached into my bag to show him a photograph. My fingers found my wallet, keys, paint-stained gloves, and an empty side pocket. I remembered placing my phone beside the sculpture. I left my phone at the collector's house. "Do you want me to drive you back?" "No, I should call first." "Use mine. It is upstairs on the nightstand." He said it casually. That detail mattered later. If he had hesitated, I might have become suspicious. If he had followed me upstairs, I might not have seen anything. But he believed the conversation was hidden under a false contact name. He did not know a new message was waiting on the lock screen. I went upstairs. His phone lay beside his watch and cufflinks. I entered the passcode. Our wedding date. The screen opened to a notification. BLAWSON. Ryan knows about Boston Harbor. He looked at me like I was disgusting. "Did you tell him about the suite?" For several seconds, the words had no meaning. Brooke Lawson. My Brooke. I told myself it might be about work. Sterling Global owned a hotel at Boston Harbor. A suite could have been reserved for a client. Ryan could have discovered an accounting problem. Then I noticed the name displayed above the notification. Brian Lowell. I did not know anyone named Brian Lowell. My thumb moved before I made a decision. The profile photograph was blank. The conversation was not. There were months of messages. Some were logistical. Suite 914. Use the private elevator. Grace thinks I am at the investor dinner. Come after 10. I will send the driver away. Others were intimate enough to make my hands shake. Brooke had written, "She trusts both of us so completely that sometimes I cannot breathe around her." Alex had replied, "Do not talk about Grace while we are here." Brooke, you always protect her, even when you are in bed with me. Alex, this was never supposed to become a relationship. Brooke, it became one when you kissed me the second time. The second time. Not the only time. I scrolled upward. There were dates I recognized. The night Alex claimed a board dinner had gone late. The weekend, he said Ryan needed help with a crisis. The evening of my mother's birthday, when he arrived after dessert and blamed a broken-down car in the tunnel. There were hotel confirmations, photographs, and messages sent while I had been downstairs making coffee. Then I found the exchange that destroyed the last part of me still searching for an innocent explanation. It had been sent 3 weeks earlier, after Alex and I returned from Maine. Brooke, did the romantic weekend fix your guilt? Alex, stop. Brooke, you looked happy in the pictures she posted. Alex, I was happy. Brooke, because you love her. Alex, yes. Brooke, just not enough to stop sleeping with me. He had not answered. He had not needed to. I stood in our bedroom, surrounded by the evidence of our marriage. Our wedding photograph sat on the dresser. My robe hung beside his in the closet. A book lay open on his side of the bed because he had fallen asleep while reading the night before. Nothing looked different. Everything was gone. I did not scream. I did not run downstairs. I became careful. Artists learn to protect fragile surfaces. We know one careless movement can ruin weeks of work. I sent screenshots to my email. Then I sent them to a private account Alex did not know existed. I photographed the screen with an old tablet from the desk drawer. I copied dates, room numbers, and financial details into a note. My hands shook so badly that I mistyped my password twice. Still, I did not stop. When I finished, I deleted the sent messages from Alex's phone, cleared the deleted folder, closed the conversation, and placed the device exactly where I had found it. I called the collector from the landline in the guest room. She had found my phone and promised to send it to the gallery with her assistant the next morning. Then I went downstairs. Alex stood in the kitchen, opening a bottle of wine. Did you reach her? He asked. Yes, she found it. Good. He poured me a glass and kissed my cheek. His hand settled at my waist. I looked at the man I had loved for 8 years. His face was familiar. His voice was familiar. Even the warmth of his palm was familiar. But I could see him now. And once an artist sees the true shape beneath the surface, she cannot honestly paint the lie again. Chapter 4. I lay beside Alex that night. I did not sleep. He fell asleep with one hand resting near my hip, his breathing slow and even. His body still believed we were safe. Mine had already understood that the man beside me was a stranger wearing my husband's face. I stared at the ceiling until the darkness turned gray. At 7, Alex showered, dressed, and came back to the bedroom knotting his tie. I have an early board call, he said. Dinner tonight. I may work late. Text me. The irony was almost unbearable. He bent and kissed my forehead. For one dangerous second, habit tried to take control. My hand nearly lifted to straighten his tie. I had done it hundreds of times. I kept both hands beneath the blanket. The front door closed. I waited until I heard his car pull away. Then I called Maya Patel. Maya had helped me negotiate gallery contracts for years before moving into family law. She was practical, direct, and almost impossible to surprise. My voice surprised her. Come to my office, she said. Do not call him, do not warn him, bring whatever you have. By 9:30, I was sitting across from her with printed screenshots, tax returns, bank information, property records, and photographs of every document I had been able to find. Maya read the messages in silence. When she finished, she removed her glasses. How long have you known? Since last night. Do you want time to think? No. Grace, you are in shock. I am in shock. I am not confused. She studied my face. What do you want? The words scraped my throat on the way out. A divorce. Pain followed it. So did relief. Maya explained the process, what evidence mattered, and what I needed to protect. The affair would not determine everything in a no-fault divorce, but the use of company hotels, drivers, and private accounts could become relevant. Do you feel physically unsafe? She asked. Alex has never hurt me. That was not my question. I considered it. No, I do not think he would hurt me, but I do not want to see him. Then do not stay at your mother's. That is the first place he will go. Margaret owned a furnished apartment above an old gallery storage space in the South End. Visiting artists used it during installations. I called and told her I needed somewhere private for a few days. She did not ask for an explanation. "The key is in my office," she said. "Stay as long as you need." By noon, I had a plan. By 3, I was packing. I moved through the brownstone like a guest who had been told to leave before the owners returned. I took clothes, personal documents, medication, my grandmother's ring, and the sketchbooks I had kept since college. I wrapped 3 small paintings that belonged to me before the marriage. I left the diamond earrings Alex gave me on our 5th anniversary. I left the dresses selected for sterling events. I left our wedding photographs. In the living room, I stopped in front of Blue Room. The thin gold line still cut through the dark canvas. For years, I had thought it looked like hope. That afternoon, it looked like a door closing. Technically, the painting belonged to Alex. He had bought it before we were married. Emotionally, I had thought it belonged to us. I left it on the wall. At 5:20, I placed my wedding ring on the kitchen counter. Beside it, I left a note on one sheet of heavy drawing paper. "I know about Brooke. Do not contact my mother. My attorney will contact you." I read the words twice. They looked too small to describe the death of a marriage. Then I carried my suitcase outside. I later learned that Alex came home 14 minutes after I left. He found the ring before he found the note. He called my name through every room. He checked the studio, the closets, and the back garden. He called my phone until it went directly to voicemail. He drove to my mother's apartment, but she did not open the door. By then, I was sitting on the narrow bed above the storage space, listening to pipes knock inside the wall. The apartment smelled like dust, coffee, and old wood. It was the least beautiful place I had slept in years. It was also the first place where I could breathe. My phone arrived at the gallery the next morning. There were 51 missed calls from Alex. His messages began with confusion. "Grace, where are you? Please answer me." Then fear. "I know what you saw. Please let me explain." Then panic. "Do not do anything until we talk. We can fix this." The last message was different. "I am so sorry." I stared at it for a long time. Then I blocked his number. I blocked Brooke too. For the next 3 days, I barely left the apartment except to work in the gallery after hours. I could not enter my regular studio. Too many memories of Alex lived there. Coffee on the windowsill, his jacket over my chair, his voice asking whether a painting was finished when he knew better than to ask. My mother came on the second evening carrying soup, bread, and enough food for several weeks. I showed her the screenshots. She read only a few before setting the pages down. "Brooke stood beside you at your wedding," she whispered. "I know." "And Alex looked me in the eye when he promised he would never hurt you." "I know." My mother took my face in both hands. "You do not have to be strong every minute." That was when I broke. I cried for the marriage I had lost and the friendship that had died with it. I cried because every good memory now had a shadow behind it. I cried because I could not tell which moments had been real and which had only looked real from where I stood. My mother held me until the shaking stopped. Then she heated the soup. That was love. Not the kind written in vows. The kind that stayed after the room became ugly. Chapter 5. Alex received the divorce papers during an executive meeting. Maya told me later that the process server found him on the 32nd floor of Sterling Tower, seated at the head of a table with 12 senior executives around him. The man asked him to confirm his name. Alex did. Then an envelope was placed in his hand. He opened it before the man left. The meeting ended less than a minute later. Ryan found him alone in the conference room, staring at the first page. "She filed," Alex said. Ryan closed the door. "What did you expect?" Alex looked up as if the answer might be hidden in his brother's face. I expected her to talk to me. You had 6 months to talk to her. Alex stood so suddenly that his chair struck the wall. Do not lecture me right now. Someone should have done it sooner. I did not witness that conversation. Ryan told me about it much later, after enough time had passed that hearing Alex's pain no longer felt like being asked to comfort him. That day, all I knew was that my attorney received 4 calls from his attorney before noon. Alex wanted an immediate meeting. I refused. He offered to leave the brownstone so I could return. I refused. He asked whether he could write to me. Maya told him no. His mother called my mother and suggested the situation should be handled privately before it damaged both families. My mother listened in silence. Then she said, "There is only one family I am protecting, and it is not yours." She hung up. Brooke tried different methods. She emailed my personal account. "Please let me explain. It was never supposed to happen." She sent a message through a mutual friend. She left flowers at the gallery. I threw the card away without opening it and asked the receptionist not to accept anything else from her. The first week passed in a blur of legal appointments, sleepless nights, and practical decisions. I rented a small, furnished loft near my studio. The windows rattled when buses passed, and the kitchen had exactly one drawer that opened properly. I bought new towels, 2 plates, and a second-hand table. Every object felt like evidence that I had a life outside my marriage. Returning to painting was harder. For several days, I stood in front of the unfinished woman by the water and felt nothing. No anger. No grief. No color. Then, one morning, I took a wide brush and covered the entire sky in black. The act was violent and freeing. I painted until my shoulders hurt. The red coat disappeared. The water became silver. The woman turned away from the darkness and faced a thin, pale horizon. I renamed the painting after the last lie. Margaret stood in the studio doorway and watched me work. "That one is different," she said. "I am different. Do you want to talk about it?" "Not yet." She nodded. "Then paint." I did. The days were bearable when I worked. Nights were worse. At night, memory became unreliable. I remembered Alex making pancakes in bare feet. Alex holding my mother after her sister died. Alex sitting on the floor of my studio for 6 hours while I finished a commission. Alex kissing Brooke in a parking garage. The last image was one I had never seen, but my mind created it anyway. Sometimes I woke furious. Sometimes I woke missing him. Missing him made me feel disloyal to myself. Maya told me that grief did not follow moral logic. "You can love someone and still leave," she said. "You can miss him and still know he is not safe for you right now." Right now. I noticed those words. I did not correct her. 3 weeks after I left, Alex sent one letter through his attorney. Maya asked whether I wanted it. I said yes. The envelope contained 2 pages in his handwriting. "Grace, I have written 20 versions of this letter and destroyed all of them because every sentence sounded like an attempt to make you understand me. You do not owe me understanding. What I did was not one mistake. It was a series of choices. I lied to you, used your trust to hide those lies, and involved someone you loved. I made our home a place where you were the only person who did not know the truth. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am asking for one conversation so I can answer every question honestly. After that, I will respect whatever you decide. I love you. I know those words have no value to you now. I am sorry that I made them worthless. Alex." I read the letter 3 times. It was the first thing he had said that did not ask me to protect him from the consequences. I still did not answer, but I stopped tearing his name out of my sketchbook margins. A week later, I agreed to one meeting. 30 minutes. A neutral office. No touching. No promises. I told Maya I wanted the truth. I did not yet know that the truth would hurt more than the messages. It would also become the first honest thing Alex gave me after months of lies. Chapter 6. Alex was already in the conference room when I arrived. He stood when I entered. For a second, my body reacted before my mind did. I noticed the familiar line of his shoulders, the watch I had given him, the tiny scar near his chin from a childhood accident. Then I saw the rest. He had lost weight. There were dark circles beneath his eyes. His suit fit differently, and the confidence that usually surrounded him was gone. A small part of me was glad he looked miserable. A larger part wanted to cross the room and hold him. I hated both reactions. "Thank you for coming," he said. I sat across from him. "You have 30 minutes. He flinched but nodded. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Then Alex placed both hands flat on the table. It began 7 months ago. The messages I had found went back 5 months. My stomach tightened. "Where?" "At the Sterling Harbor Hotel. There was a dinner after a product launch. You were in New York meeting a gallery owner. Brooke and I stayed after everyone left to discuss a press problem. We had both been drinking. She said I treated her like your friend instead of a professional. I told her she was jealous of you." "Was she?" "Yes." He looked down. "She kissed me in the parking garage. I kissed her back." The words struck differently when spoken aloud. "And then I told her it could never happen again. But it did. 2 weeks later, then again. For 7 months." His voice broke. "Yes." I had imagined this conversation every night since I left. In some versions, I screamed. In others, I threw water in his face or listed every sacrifice I had made. Instead, I asked the simplest question. "Why?" Alex pressed his fingers to his forehead. "There is no answer that will not sound pathetic. Try." He breathed in slowly. My father had begun talking about retirement. The board expected me to take control of the family trust as well as the company. Every decision felt like it belonged to 10 people before it belonged to me. I was angry. I was afraid of failing. With Brooke, there were no expectations. She knew the selfish parts of me and encouraged them. It felt like a separate room outside my real life. "Your real life was me." "I know." "No, you know now because I left. While you were doing it, your real life was the thing you expected to remain waiting at home." He closed his eyes. "You are right." Agreement did not make the pain smaller. "Did you love her?" "No." "Did you tell her you did?" "No." "Did you plan to leave me?" "Never." I laughed once without humor. "You say that as if it should comfort me." "I know it does not. I am trying to answer honestly." "Were there other women?" "No." "Did you use company money?" "Yes, hotel rooms, drivers' meals. I have already disclosed everything to Ryan, our attorney, and the audit committee. I am reimbursing every dollar." That surprised me. "Why would you tell the board?" "Because hiding consequences is how I became this man." I looked at him carefully. "Did Ryan force you?" "No. He told me not to turn confession into another performance." That sounded like Ryan. "When did he find out?" "The afternoon you came home. He saw Brooke leaving a suite at the Harbor Hotel. He confronted me. He said I had 24 hours to tell you or he would." I remembered the argument. "Were you going to tell me that night?" Alex looked at the table. Silence answered for him. "I was trying to decide how," he said finally. "You were trying to decide how much truth you could survive telling." "Yes." The honesty hurt more than a defense would have. I folded my hands in my lap. "What would have happened if I had not picked up your phone?" His face changed. "I want to say I would have told you. But I do not know whether I would have been brave enough." The room went very quiet. "We were talking about having a child next year," I said. Alex's eyes filled with tears. I know. I might have become pregnant while you were doing this. Brooke might have stood at a baby shower and touched my stomach. You might have left my bed and gone to hers. Did you think about any of that? He covered his mouth with one hand. Not enough. That is the most honest answer I have. I thought about what I wanted in each moment. I did not let myself imagine the whole picture because the whole picture would have forced me to stop. I felt something inside me crack again. Not because the answer was cruel. Because it was true. Alex reached across the table, then stopped before his hand crossed the center. I have ended all contact with Brooke. Her company no longer works for Sterling Global. I told both our families the truth. I have taken an indefinite leave as CEO. I started therapy. I stopped drinking. None of that fixes what I did. I know that. Then why are you telling me? Because I need you to know. I am not going to call this a mistake and wait for time to make it smaller. His voice shook. Grace, I will sign every paper you put in front of me. I will give you the house. I will never fight you over money or property. But before you close the door forever, I am begging you for the chance to show you that the man who betrayed you does not have to be the man I remain. There it was. The plea I had expected. My heart moved toward him out of old habit. I held it still. You want a chance because you are in pain. Yes. And because you love me. More than I knew how to honor. That is not love I can trust. He began to cry. I had seen Alex cry only twice before. Once when his grandmother died. Once when my mother had a health scare and he thought we might lose her. That day, he did not hide it. Please, he whispered, do not decide that I am beyond becoming better. I am not deciding that. Hope flashed across his face. I continued. I hope you become better. I hope you become honest. I hope one day you can look at yourself without excuses, but I do not have to stay close enough to be hurt while you learn. His shoulders dropped. Is there nothing I can do? Respect my decision. And if your decision is divorce, then sign the papers. He closed his eyes. For one terrible second, I wanted to tell him I did not mean it. But I did. At least, I meant it then. The 30 minutes ended. I stood. Alex stood too, but he did not come closer. I am sorry, he said. Not because I lost you, because I made you live inside a lie. That was the first apology that reached me. It did not earn forgiveness. But it stayed with me after I left the room. Chapter 7. Brooke tried to reach me through everyone we knew. She emailed my studio account. She sent letters to my mother's apartment. She asked mutual friends to tell me she was falling apart. One package arrived at the gallery, containing photographs from our childhood. Brooke and me at 13, wearing matching plastic bracelets. Brooke beside my mother at my college graduation. Brooke fastening the back of my wedding dress. A note lay on top. Please remember who I was before I did this. I returned the package unopened. 2 months after I left Alex, she appeared outside my studio. It was nearly 9 at night. Rain had turned the sidewalks black and shiny. I had stayed late preparing work for a small exhibition and was carrying 2 empty coffee cups toward the trash when I saw her beneath the awning. She looked thinner. Her hair was pulled into a loose knot, and her face was pale without makeup. I need 5 minutes, she said. No. I walked toward the parking garage. She followed. Grace, please, I know you hate me. You do not know anything about what I feel. Alex will not speak to me. Sterling canceled every contract with my firm. 3 clients left after they heard there was an ethics investigation. Half our friends have blocked me. I stopped and turned around. Are you describing consequences because you think they are an apology? Tears filled her eyes. I am telling you I lost everything. You did not lose it, Brooke. You traded it. Her mouth opened, then closed. Rain struck the edge of the awning between us. I never meant for you to find out like that, she whispered. How did you mean for me to find out? I did not. I thought it would end. Then why did you keep going back? She looked down. For years, I had known every expression on her face. I knew when she was afraid, when she was performing, and when she had decided to tell the truth only because all useful lies were gone. I was jealous of you, she said. The answer was so small that I almost laughed. Of what? Everything. You always had less, but you were never ashamed. Your mother loved you. You knew what you wanted. You had your art. Then Alex came into your life, and he looked at you as if no one else existed. So you wanted to prove that someone else could exist. She covered her face. I did not plan it. You planned hotel rooms. You used false names. You texted him while you sat at my table. I know. You helped me choose his anniversary gift while you were sleeping. With him. She began to cry harder. That memory had returned the night before. Brooke and I had spent an afternoon looking for a watch Alex would like. She rejected one because she said the leather band would irritate his wrist. At the time, I thought she was observant. Now I knew she had touched that wrist in rooms I paid for without knowing. Did you love him? I asked. Brooke lowered her hands. I thought I did. And now? Now he looks at me like I am the person who helped him destroy his life. You were. He made choices too. I know, I married him. His choices are mine to deal with. You were my friend. She stepped closer. I am still your friend. Somewhere underneath this, I am still the person who sat beside you in the hospital when your mother had surgery. I am still the person who painted frames for your first show. I felt tears burn my eyes. That is what makes it worse. She reached for my hand. I moved back. Please forgive me, she said. Not today, someday. I cannot live knowing this is the last thing between us. Once, I would have protected her from the pain in her own voice. I remembered being 14 and holding her while her parents fought in the next room. I remembered sharing my food when she was too proud to admit there was none at home. I remembered every version of us before betrayal. Those memories were real. So was what she had done. There is one thing you can do for me, I said. Hope appeared in her face. Leave me alone. Do not contact my mother. Do not come to my studio. Do not ask anyone to carry messages. For how long? I looked at the woman who had known me for most of my life. Forever. She made a broken sound. I walked away before grief could turn into weakness. Some relationships can survive anger. They can survive distance, envy, and terrible words. But trust is the canvas beneath everything else. Once it is cut deeply enough, no amount of paint can make the surface whole again. Chapter 8. For the first few months, I measured Alex's regret by the messages he did not send. He respected the boundary I had set. No flowers arrived at the studio. No driver waited outside my apartment. He did not appear at my exhibitions or use his name to force a meeting. All communication went through our attorneys. That silence was the first difficult thing he did for me instead of for himself. News about Sterling Global still reached me. Alex extended his leave as CEO. Ryan became acting chief executive. An internal review confirmed that Alex had used company resources during the affair. He reimbursed every expense, paid an additional penalty, and asked the board to create stricter rules for executive relationships with contractors. The company released no details about me or Brooke. Alex refused to let his public relations department describe him as the victim of a personal crisis. Ryan told my mother that Alex had insisted on one sentence in the internal statement. The CEO accepted full responsibility for conduct that violated both company policy and his personal obligations. It did not repair my marriage, but it mattered that he stopped hiding behind his title. He attended therapy twice a week. He moved out of the brownstone and rented a plain apartment near the river. He stopped drinking. He turned over management of the family trust to an independent committee because, as he told Ryan, power without accountability had become too easy for him. I learned these things slowly, and never from Alex. Ryan called my mother occasionally. My mother never asked for information, but she did not hang up either. She had loved Alex like a son. His betrayal had wounded her too. "He sounds different," she told me once. "People sound different when they want something." That is true. She did not argue. Meanwhile, I painted. The work that began with "After the Last Lie" became a series. I painted empty rooms with open windows, women standing beside burned letters, a white dress floating in dark water, a table set for two with one chair turned toward the door. I called the collection Afterimage. Margaret arranged a solo exhibition for the following spring. A gallery in New York asked to show 3 pieces. A museum curator wrote an essay about the way my paintings explored the violence of private absence. I smiled at the phrase. The paintings were not about absence. They were about survival after being forced to see what was missing. 8 months after I left, Maya sent me the final settlement proposal. Alex had agreed to everything reasonable. He did not fight over the brownstone. He offered me half its value even though his family had helped purchase it. He returned every painting of mine from the house and included Blue Room. A note from his attorney explained that Alex considered it mine, regardless of the original bill of sale. I stared at the wrapped canvas in my studio for several days before opening it. When I finally removed the paper, the blue paint looked exactly as it had the night we met. The gold lines still cut through the dark room. I expected to hate it. Instead, I sat on the floor and cried. Not because I wanted my old life back. Because the woman who painted it had believed light meant hope, and I was not ready to decide she had been foolish. The divorce mediation was scheduled for the week after my exhibition opened. Alex did not attend the opening. I noticed. Hundreds of people moved through the gallery. Critics, collectors, artists, friends, strangers. My mother wore a red dress and told everyone who would listen that she had always known I was brilliant. Near the end of the night, Ryan arrived alone. He stood in front of After the Last Lie for a long time. He wanted to come, Ryan said when we spoke. I assumed he did. I told him it would be selfish. You were right. Ryan nodded. He bought nothing, by the way. He knew you would think he was trying to control the show. I looked across the room at Blue Room, which Margaret had convinced me to include near the entrance. How is he? It was the first time I had asked. Ryan chose his words carefully. He is finally more ashamed of what he did to you than frightened of losing you. That is progress. The answer stayed with me. 3 days later, Maya called. Alex has signed the settlement, she said. He is not requesting changes. Once you sign, we can move toward the final hearing. I held the pen above the signature line. For 9 months, divorce had been the road beneath my feet. Clear, necessary, safe. Now, with the end directly in front of me, I felt something unexpected. Not doubt about the betrayal. Doubt about whether the man who betrayed me was still the only man Alex could be. I did not sign that day. I told Maya I needed 1 week. Then I sent Alex the first message I had written since leaving. Coffee, 1 hour, public place, Saturday at 10. His reply came 11 minutes later. I will be there, thank you. No heart. No promise. No pressure. Just gratitude for 1 hour he knew he had not earned. Chapter 9. Alex arrived at the cafe 20 minutes early. I saw him through the window before I entered. He sat at a small table near the back, both hands wrapped around a cup he had not touched. He looked older than he had 9 months earlier. Not ruined. Not dramatic. Simply changed. When I approached, he stood. Hi, Grace. Hi. He waited until I sat before taking his chair. For a moment, neither of us knew how to begin. The exhibition was extraordinary, he said. I looked at him sharply. You saw it. Margaret allowed me to visit after closing on Monday. I asked first. She said you had not forbidden it, only asked me not to attend the opening. That was true. Which painting did you like? His mouth moved into the smallest smile. That feels like a test. It is. The one with the 2 cups on the windowsill. The painting was called Morning After. Most reviewers barely mentioned it. It was quieter than the others. Why? I asked. Because 1 cup is broken, but someone put flowers in it instead of throwing it away. I looked down at my coffee. He still knew how to see my work. That frightened me. I did not ask you here to discuss paintings, I said. I know. You signed everything. Yes. You are willing to let the divorce become final. Pain crossed his face, but he did not look away. I am willing to give you whatever makes you feel free. Even if it means losing me. I lost the right to make your freedom depend on my happiness. The answer was not romantic. It was better. Why did you step away from the company? At first, because I could not function. Then I realized I had spent my entire adult life believing results excused behavior. If the company made money, the pressure was justified. If I loved you, the lies were somehow separate. I needed to learn who I was without being the person everyone obeyed. And who are you? He gave a tired smile. Someone still finding out. I asked questions for almost 2 hours. He answered every one. He told me he had not spoken to Brooke since the day I left. He told me she had sent letters, but he returned them. He told me he had sold his shares in her firm at a loss because keeping any connection felt dishonest. He told me therapy had forced him to examine the way his family treated desire as entitlement. He told me he had once believed remorse should be rewarded. I kept thinking that if I suffered enough, you would owe me another chance, he said. Ryan told me that was just another form of selfishness. He was right. He usually is when I least want him to be. When the hour became 2, Alex glanced at the clock. You asked for 1 hour, I should go. He stood. Panic rose unexpectedly in my chest. Alex. He stopped. Would you be willing to see a counselor with me? His face changed so quickly that I had to look away. Hope, fear, gratitude. Yes, he said, under any conditions you set. This is not reconciliation. I understand. It may only help me finish the divorce without carrying questions into the rest of my life. His throat moved as he swallowed. I understand that too. We began counseling the following week. The therapist, Dr. Lena Morris, made one rule clear during our first session. The injured partner controls the pace, she said. Forgiveness cannot be demanded, scheduled, or purchased through good behavior. Alex nodded. I know. Dr. Morris looked at him. You are here because you are beginning to know. That is not the same as having learned. Over the next 3 months, I watched him learn. He listened when I described the images that woke me at night. He answered repeated questions without accusing me of punishing him. He gave me complete access to his phone and accounts, then accepted when I said surveillance was not the kind of marriage I wanted. He apologized to my mother in person. He did not ask her to forgive him. He returned to Sterling Global as Chief Strategy Officer, not CEO. The board had offered to restore his title. He declined until the new ethics policies had been in place for a full year. None of those things erased the affair. But together, they formed something promises never had. Evidence. Chapter 10. Trust did not return like light filling a room. It returned like a hand, learning to move after an injury. Slowly. Painfully. With setbacks that made progress feel imaginary. Alex and I continued living separately. We met in Dr. Morris's office on Thursdays. After 2 months, we began having dinner once a week. Public places at first, then my mother's kitchen, then, eventually, the small apartment where Alex lived. The first time I entered it, I was surprised by how little he owned. A couch, a dining table, books stacked on the floor, One framed photograph of my mother, Alex, and me from a summer picnic. Blue room was not there. Why did you give it back? I asked. Because I bought the painting, but you gave it meaning. I had no right to keep both after what I did. I looked at him. You always knew what to say. His face tightened. I know. That is why I am trying to make sure my life says it before my mouth does. Some nights went well. We talked, laughed, and remembered why we had loved each other. Other nights ended with me leaving suddenly, because his phone lit up or because a hotel appeared in a movie playing behind us. Once, while we were cooking, he received a message from an unfamiliar woman. My entire body went cold. Alex saw my face and placed the phone on the counter without opening it. You can look, he said. I do not want to become that person. Then I will tell you. Her name is Claire Monroe. She is the new head of investor relations. The message is probably about tomorrow's meeting. He opened it and turned the screen toward me. It was exactly what he said. I hated the relief that followed. I hated him for creating the fear. I cannot live like this, I whispered. He put the phone down. I know. What if I never stop seeing danger everywhere? Then I will still be sorry I taught you to see it. He did not tell me to calm down. He did not say I should trust him because he had changed. He stood on the other side of the kitchen and let me decide whether I wanted him closer. That night, I crossed the distance first. I rested my forehead against his chest. His arms came around me carefully. I cried until his shirt was wet. I hate that I still love you, I said. His breath shook. I know. I hate that part of me wants to come home. There is no home waiting for you to return to. I destroyed that one. I pulled back. He looked terrified, but he continued. If you ever choose me again, we build something new. You do not come back to the place where I lied to you. That was when I understood he had finally stopped asking for the past. He was asking for a future he knew might never exist. The divorce hearing was postponed twice. Not because Alex requested it. Because I did. After 6 months of counseling, Maya asked whether I wanted to dismiss the petition. I could not answer. That evening, Alex came to my studio. We stood in front of a new canvas that showed 2 figures on opposite sides of a river. Between them, unfinished stones formed the beginning of a bridge. What happens to them? He asked. I do not know yet. He nodded. Grace, I need to say this once, then I will not ask again. My hand tightened around the brush. Alex moved in front of me. His eyes were wet. I am not asking you to forget. I am not asking you to become the woman who trusted me without evidence. I am asking for the chance to love the woman you are now. His voice broke. I will spend the rest of my life regretting what I did, whether you choose me or not. But if there is any part of you that believes we can build something honest, I am begging you not to close the door because you think forgiveness makes you weak. Tears blurred the canvas behind him. What if you hurt me again? Then you leave, and I do not ask for another chance. What if I cannot forgive you completely? Then I accept the parts that remain painful. What if I ask the same questions 10 years from now? I answer them. He lowered himself to his knees. Not like the night he proposed. There was no ring in his hand and no certainty in his face. Only humility. Please, Grace, he whispered, let me keep earning my way back to you. I looked at the man I had married and the man he had become after losing the protection of my trust. Forgiveness did not arrive as a feeling. It arrived as a decision with conditions. Stand up, I said. He did. I touched his face. I forgive you. His eyes closed. A sob escaped him. But forgiveness is not the same as everything being fixed. I know. We continue therapy. We live separately until I am ready. No secrets. No blaming pressure, alcohol, Brooke, or me. Yes. And I am not withdrawing the divorce petition today. Pain moved through his face, but he nodded. All right. That answer mattered. I kissed him for the first time in nearly a year. It was not the kiss of a woman surrendering. It was the kiss of a woman choosing with her eyes open. Chapter 11. I dismissed the divorce petition 4 months later. Alex did not celebrate with champagne or announce our reconciliation to anyone. He cooked dinner in his apartment, burned the bread, and cried when I placed my wedding ring on the table between us. I do not want the old vows, I said. Neither do I. They were beautiful, but we did not understand them. He turned the ring slowly beneath one finger. Then we write new ones when you are ready. I moved back into a home with Alex the following spring. Not the brownstone. We sold it. Too many rooms belonged to the life that had ended there. We bought a smaller house in Cambridge with a bright kitchen, uneven wooden floors, and a separate carriage house that became my studio. I paid for half from the sales of the afterimage collection. That mattered to me. Alex understood why. He returned as CEO of Sterling Global after 16 months away. The board restored him only after the new ethics rules, independent reporting system, and executive accountability policies had been reviewed by outside counsel. He led differently. He took fewer late meetings. He stopped treating exhaustion as proof of importance. He apologized when he was wrong without making the apology a negotiation. At home, change appeared in ordinary ways. He left his phone on the kitchen counter, but I eventually stopped noticing where it was. He told me when fear made him want to hide. I told him when a memory had returned. Some anniversaries were difficult. The date I found the messages never became an ordinary day. The first year after we reconciled, Alex asked what I needed. Do not turn it into a performance, I said. So we went to therapy in the morning, walked beside the river in the afternoon, and ate soup with my mother that evening. That was enough. 2 years after I left him, the Hale Gallery opened my largest exhibition. I called it Second Light. The final painting hung alone on the far wall. It was the canvas I had begun while Alex and I were separated. The two figures still stood on opposite sides of the river, but the bridge between them was complete. Not perfect. Several stones were cracked. Some were darker than others. The structure bent slightly in the center. Still it held. I titled the painting The Way Back is Built. On opening night, my mother stood near the entrance in a silver dress. Margaret moved through the crowd accepting congratulations as if every success in my career belonged partly to her. Alex remained in the background. He spoke to guests when they approached him, but he did not stand beside me for photographs unless I reached for him first. The exhibition was mine. He knew how to love it without owning it. Near the end of the evening, I found him alone in front of the final painting. What do you see? I asked. It was the same question he had asked about Blue Room the night we met. Alex studied the bridge. I see two people who learned that wanting to reach each other was not enough. They had to build something that could carry the weight. I slipped my hand into his. That is close. Only close. The artist is difficult. He smiled. Then he reached into his jacket and removed a folded sheet of paper. What is that? New vows. You said we would write them when you were ready. I thought I should be prepared in case that happened tonight. I stared at him. You brought vows to my exhibition. They have been in my pocket for 6 months. I laughed, and he looked relieved. After the last guest left, my mother and Margaret joined us in the center of the gallery. Ryan stood beside Alex. There were no flowers, no cameras, and no expensive celebration. Alex took both my hands. Grace, I once promised never to hurt you because I thought love made me incapable of betrayal. I know better now. Love is not proof of character. Choices are. His voice trembled. I promise to tell the truth before it is convenient. I promise to respect your freedom even when I am afraid of losing you. I promise never to use your forgiveness as permission to forget what it cost. And I promise to keep becoming a man who is safe for your heart. Tears ran down my face. I read my vows next. I promised honesty about my fear. I promised not to use the past as a weapon when I had chosen to remain. I promised to leave if the marriage ever required me to become blind again. Then I placed the same ring back on my finger, not as proof that the first marriage had survived unchanged. It had not. The marriage built on innocence had ended the night I opened Alex's phone. What we had now was built with knowledge. It was less effortless. It was more honest. Later, Alex and I stood alone in front of the way back is built. Outside, Boston was cold and bright. My mother was waiting for us at a late-night restaurant. Tomorrow there would be work, dishes, board meetings, paint on the floor, difficult conversations, and ordinary happiness. There would be no perfect life, only a truthful one. My mother had taught me that love was proven by who stayed. For a long time, I thought staying always meant refusing to leave another person. Now I understood something more. Sometimes love meant staying with yourself long enough to demand better. Sometimes it meant leaving. Sometimes, when change was real and freely chosen, it meant opening the door again. Alex had nearly lost me because he believed love would remain no matter what he did. He earned his way back when he finally understood that love was not a possession. It was a practice, a truth, a bridge built one honest stone at a time. The end.